Welcome to the next edition of I Call BS. Before I begin, let's highlight something Trudeau said that is not BS.
For Canadians, grocery bills suck. Rent sucks. Mortgage renegotiation, oh my God, how are we going to deal with it?
Well, he's right. Housing costs have doubled, and for the first time ever, young people can't afford a home. That really sucks. One problem, Trudeau's been in power for 9 years, so if life sucks, then he sucks. Unless, that is, he can find someone or something else to blame. In a previous I Call BS, I debunked his government's claim that Jean Chrétien, a 1990s Liberal Prime Minister, is to blame for doubling housing costs over the last 9 years. So now Trudeau is taken to blaming the entire world. It's COVID or Ukraine or some other global factor.
If we could go back to the housing crisis that we're in now, just sort of as an overview, I wanted to run this past you. In 2015, when you became Prime Minister, the average house in Hamilton was about $334,000. 2024, it's $850,000, beyond the reach of many people. What happened? How did governments let this happen?
We could talk about the global economy, the inflation crisis that came from the fact that we had a once-in-a-century pandemic. We could talk about the labor shortages that we're facing. We could talk about the fact that Canada has only about 4% affordable housing stock across the country.
But if global factors really doubled Canada's housing costs, those same factors would have doubled housing costs in the entire world. Have they? Well, this all-in-one chart compares how much housing costs and incomes have changed in all 36 developed countries tracked by the OECD since 2015. We see Canada compared to the others. The higher the dot is above the line, the more housing costs outpaced wages, and the more affordability worsened in a given country. If the dot is below the line, it means that housing costs have dropped relative to incomes and affordability actually improved. Again, if global factors were to blame, all countries would see these dots rise together in tandem, and the chart would look like this. But it doesn't. Instead, it looks like this. In Romania, Bulgaria, Korea, Finland, Italy, South Africa, and Poland, affordability actually improved since 2015 because incomes went up faster than housing costs. In Croatia, Sweden, Belgium, Lithuania, France, Denmark, and Latvia, housing affordability barely changed at all. Now, all of these countries had COVID, and most are closer to Ukraine and Russia than we are, and their housing stayed the same or got even more affordable. So how does Canada rank on housing affordability in the last 9 years compared to other countries? Well, under Justin Trudeau, we are the worst in the G7 and the second worst of all 36 developed countries tracked by the OECD. Only Portugal did worse. Somehow, these supposedly global factors only affected Canada and Portugal. Really? No, not really. Housing is one of the least globally dependent things we buy. What goes into building a home? Land? We don't import land from the world. Lumber? We have plenty right here. Labor? Again, our workers are here in Canada. Housing is homemade, literally and pun intended. The supply of it has nothing to do with the rest of the world. So no, it has nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. When Putin invaded Ukraine in 2014, housing costs did not skyrocket in Canada. Of course, Stephen Harper was Prime Minister back then, not Justin Trudeau. In fact, home building was one of the few industries that did not get shut down during the pandemic. Home building was actually higher during the lockdowns than it was last year. And no, prices did not just go up because people were moving to bigger homes during COVID. Rent on one-bedrooms spiked, and prices of small condos have risen too. Something that would not have happened if people were just dumping their downtown properties for country estates. In fact, all of the land and most of the homes in Canada today were here before either the Russia-Ukraine war or COVID even happened. So enough with the dog ate my homework excuses. So what is the real reason that costs have doubled under Trudeau? Well, real estate prices are determined by supply and demand. So let's break those down. Demand for housing is determined by the number of people and the amount of money buying homes. Immigration and money supply are domestic decisions made by the federal government and cannot, therefore, be blamed on the rest of the world either. The Trudeau government ran massive deficits, doubled our national debt, which forced the Bank of Canada to create $700 billion of new cash that flooded financial and mortgage markets with easy credit that bid up homes. And there were more people bidding on those homes. Canada built one new home for every 5 new people last year. The worst housing deficit on record. And you don't need to take my word for it. The Trudeau government blames their own immigration policies for that.
I want to start off just by delineating between permanent residents and temporary ones. On the latter, is your government going to, even temporarily while the housing crisis is so acute, cap the number of international students and or temporary foreign workers?
Well, it's something we're going to look at in the first half of this year, Vashi. That volume is disconcerting. It's really a system that has gotten out of control.
I don't think anybody needs a briefing note to understand that having more people in a housing market impacts the housing market.
Meanwhile, he pays local bureaucracies to block home building. We have the fewest homes per capita in the G7, even though we have by far the most land to build on, because we have the slowest and costliest building permits. So when you balloon demand and block supply, you get higher costs. Let's turn that on its head by adding homes faster than we add people and cash. Here's my common sense plan to do that. 1. Get municipalities to free up land, speed up permits, and lower building fees by requiring them to permit 15% more homes per year and approve skyrise apartments around all transit stations as a condition of getting federal funds. 2. Sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to build. 3. Axe the carbon tax to lower building costs and building material prices. And 4. End government money printing that inflates real estate prices and interest rates. Build homes, not bureaucracy. Get results, not excuses. Common sense, not BS. Let's bring it home.